a case that sent shockwaves through a small Alaskan town, unraveling a horror story that left even the most seasoned officers in fear. Buckle up as we explore the gruesome and eerie tale of the murder that rocked Nome, Alaska. Picture this: Nome, a remote settlement about 1,000 kilometers northwest of Anchorage, with its rugged mountains and the turbulent waters of the Bering Sea. Home to just 3,000 people, this tight-knit community enjoyed a relatively low crime rate, making it an ideal place to live. In the summer of 2003, however, this peaceful town was about to face its darkest hour. On August 12, 2003, Sonya Ivanoff, a 19-year-old student, was reported missing by her worried roommate, Tam Torak.
It was still kind of early. She felt like being out, and she jumped in the rain and started walking. I didn't know what to do.
I actually went to the police station.
They kind of took it like it was a joke or something.
The night before, Sonia and Tam had gone to a friend's house for a board game night. While Tam had left early to prepare for work the next morning, Sonia stayed out, planning to visit more friends. When Tam returned home and found Sonia absent, she brushed it off at first. But as the day wore on without any word from Sonia, her concern grew. Sonia was known for keeping her friends and family in the loop. Her sudden disappearance was deeply unsettling. By the following day, the local police in Nome, with their 7 officers accustomed to handling minor disturbances, were faced with a case that was anything but ordinary. Sonia's picture was distributed, and the search for her began in earnest. The breakthrough came when a volunteer, scanning the area with a sharp eye, spotted something unusual in the bushes along an old road 3 kilometers north of town. What they found was the lifeless body of Sonya Ivanoff.
I couldn't see the face. I knew most likely it was Sonia.
I just couldn't believe it.
Officer Byron Redburn, an experienced crime scene handler, was struck by the scene's eerie cleanliness. Unlike typical murder sites, the area was unusually tidy. Sonia's body showed no visible injuries, save for a single sock on her foot, hinting at a possible sexual assault.
We needed to preserve the scene for the Alaska Bureau investigation team that would come up.
The crime scene was marred by tire tracks over a pool of blood, suggesting the presence of a vehicle. It was the first female murder in Nome in over 2 decades. The discovery sent ripples of fear through the small town. The Nome police were outmatched and overwhelmed. With only 7 officers to their name, they knew they needed more help. They reached out to the Alaska Bureau of Investigation, hoping for a swift intervention. A criminalist was set to arrive the next morning, but until then, local officers were left to secure the crime scene overnight. The investigation took a chilling turn as it became clear that the killer was both brutal and cunning. He left no evidence behind, making the task of identifying him even more daunting. The entire town was on edge, with whispers of fear and suspicion hanging in the air. The peaceful life in Nome took a terrifying turn when Sonya Ivanoff, a 19-year-old college hopeful, was found dead in the bushes along a remote road. As the investigation began, Police Chief Taylor and his deputy, Owens, took it upon themselves to stand guard throughout the night, ensuring nothing was overlooked. Officer Byron Redburn faced the heart-wrenching task of breaking the news to Sonia's family, a job no one wants to do. Sonia's mother, engulfed in disbelief, struggled to understand who could have done such a thing to her vibrant, kind-hearted daughter.
Showed up at the police department with a picture of Sonia and stuck it on the wall.
I wanted to make sure that they knew we were still here.
Sonia had recently moved to Nome from the small village of Unalakleet to save up for college. Her roommate, Tam Torak, wasn't just a friend, but her best childhood companion. They were practically inseparable, often finishing each other's sentences. Sonia had quickly become a local celebrity in Nome. With her athletic prowess, particularly in basketball, her beauty, and her strong, spirited nature, everyone knew and admired her. Nome had always celebrated its athletes, and Sonia was no exception. As the forensic team analyzed the blue paint found at the crime scene, the police had their work cut out for them. What they knew for sure was that the killer drove a blue vehicle, was skilled at covering their tracks, and with such a horrific crime so close to town, Nome was no longer a safe haven. The tire analysis revealed a crucial clue. The suspect's vehicle had 3 identical tires and 1 different, which matched the shade of blue seen on certain trucks and SUVs. With this information, investigators set out to find a vehicle that matched this description. But while they searched for the elusive blue truck, Officer Byron Redburn decided to dig deeper into Sonia's personal life.
This case in a whole new direction.
Someone with that kind of information, they have to be courageous to speak up.
You tell your chief, we can't investigate this anymore.
Redburn visited Sonia's roommate, Tam Turak, to check out Sonia's belongings, hoping for a breakthrough. As he leafed through Sonia's photo album, one picture stood out, a snapshot of Sonia with a large bruise on her arm. Tam explained that the bruise was from a playful wrestling match with friends, and the culprit was a guy named Andrew Donnelly, or Donnie as everyone called him. Donnie had always been infatuated with Sonia, and Redburn's suspicions were immediately piqued. Seeing that bruise raised red flags, so Redburn quickly summoned Donnie for questioning. Donnie was visibly distraught over Sonia's death and insisted he couldn't have been involved because he was out hunting at the time of the murder. He explained that he was camping with friends several kilometers from Nome. To verify Donnie's alibi, officers spoke with his friends, who confirmed that Donnie had been camping with them. However, they couldn't vouch for his whereabouts throughout the night, leaving a crucial gap in his alibi. With a distance of 117 kilometers between the hunting camp and Nome, it was plausible that Donnie could have made a quick trip to commit the murder and return unnoticed. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the police obtained a warrant to search Donnie's house. In his garage, they found sneakers stained with blood and a blue pickup truck that immediately drew attention. The blue paint on the truck matched the paint found at the crime scene. When investigators examined the truck, they discovered a blue tarp in the bed covered with numerous stains. Forensic tests on the tarp indicated the presence of blood. Behind the driver's seat, they found a hunting rifle with what appeared to be bloodstains on the stock. The combination of blood on the firearm, the tarp, and the truck's tires strongly suggested Donnie's involvement in Sonia's murder. The truck had 3 matching tires and 1 different, mirroring the tire tracks found at the crime scene. Despite this mounting evidence, Donnie remained adamant about his innocence. He claimed that the blood in his truck came from a porcupine he had shot during his hunting trip. His explanations seemed far-fetched given the evidence against him, but the police were determined to piece together the full picture. As the investigation deepened, the tension in Nome continued to rise. The town was gripped by fear and uncertainty, and everyone was eager to see justice served. The investigators had a suspect, and all they needed now was to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donnie Donnelly was the man behind the horrific crime. The investigation took a turn when Donnie Donnelly, a local man previously suspected in Sonia's murder, offered an unusual explanation. He claimed that the blood found on his sneakers, truck tarp, and rifle belonged to animals he had hunted. As for the blue paint, Donnie insisted it came from a rabbit he ran over and then killed to put it out of its misery. Carrie Cathcart, the forensic investigator, was unimpressed and found Donnie's story rather far-fetched. As the forensic results came in, Donnie's alibi seemed to fall apart. The test showed that the blood on Donnie's belongings was indeed animal blood. Additionally, the blue paint on his truck didn't match the paint found on the crime scene. In a previous era, Donnie might have faced swift justice, but modern forensic evidence cleared him of the crime. Meanwhile, an autopsy on Sonya Ivanoff revealed startling details. X-rays showed a .22 caliber bullet lodged in her skull. The shot was fired from very close range, almost execution style, and was the cause of her death. There were no signs of sexual assault or foreign skin under her nails, and the lack of bodily fluids on her body made DNA evidence elusive. Despite collecting samples with adhesive tape, investigators found no matching fibers or hair. The search for Sonia's clothes led investigators to the Nome landfill. Despite the efforts of many volunteers, they turned up empty-handed and eventually abandoned the search. Just as the case seemed to be hitting a dead end, a crucial tip came in that would shift the investigation dramatically. A young woman named Allison Warren came forward with significant information. She and her sister had seen Sonia after midnight on the night she disappeared. The sisters were at home when they saw Sonia chatting with them briefly before walking away. At the corner, a police car pulled up beside Sonia. The girls watched as the car window rolled down, and Sonia was seen talking to the driver before getting into the vehicle. This sighting was pivotal. Instead of heading west towards Sonia's home, the police car drove in the opposite direction, towards the deserted area where Sonia's body was eventually found. The time was noted, 1:26 a.m. on August 11th. This sighting immediately narrowed the pool of suspects from 3,000 residents to the town's police force and their families. The investigation zeroed in on the police department. It was unthinkable for the townsfolk to believe that one of their own could be involved in such a heinous crime. The next step was to check which officers were on duty that night. It was discovered that 2 officers were working during the early hours when Sonia was last seen. The case now hinged on unraveling the truth behind this disturbing lead. Could one of these officers have been involved in Sonia's murder? The tight-knit community, previously shocked and disbelieving, now faced the grim reality that their trusted protectors might be hiding a dark secret. Enter Paul Souza and Matthew Owens, 2 key figures in the investigation. Matthew Owens, who had relocated from Florida 3 years earlier, was a firearms expert and a trainer for fellow officers. Paul Souza, a Nome native, was not just Sonia's basketball coach, but also a longtime fixture in the local jail. Both were known as serious, dedicated policemen who seemed committed to solving Sonia's murder. If one of them was the killer, it would explain why so much evidence was missing from the crime scene. Police Academy training includes details on evidence collection and investigation that go way beyond what you see on TV dramas. So when Paul and Matt both denied giving Sonia a ride, and the witness statement suggested otherwise, it raised red flags. Fast forward 26 days after Sonia's body was discovered. The case was handed over to Alaska State Police investigator Eric Burrows, who had 5 years of experience. His mission? To figure out if either Paul or Matt was the cold-blooded killer. His first step was to pin down their whereabouts at 1:26 a.m., the time Sonia was seen getting into the police car. Matthew Owens claimed he was at a bar on the other side of town, overseeing its closing, but witnesses placed him there at 2 a.m. with no clear alibi for the earlier time. Paul Souza said he was working on a report at the station but couldn't account for certain periods of the night. Burrows decided it was time for a polygraph test, away from Nome, to keep things discreet. They planned to conduct the interviews in Anchorage, hoping to clear the officers quietly if they were innocent. But things took a turn for the worse. Just 8 hours before the officers were supposed to leave for Anchorage, Patrol Car 321 was stolen from the police lot. This wasn't just any patrol car. It contained critical equipment, including shotguns. The theft was a nightmare, putting the entire town on high alert. 2 hours later, an urgent message crackled over the radio. An officer reported finding Patrol Car 321. Then came a shocking update. Shots had been fired at Deputy Matt Owens. Redburn rushed to the scene at an old mine, only to find the patrol car abandoned and silent. Owens emerged from the darkness unharmed, claiming he had been attacked but saw no shooter and had no useful details to provide. The location was eerily close to where Sonia's body was found. The Alaska State Crime Lab discovered something strange at the scene. Among the debris was an envelope containing Sonya Ivanoff's pool pass, something not mentioned in the police reports and presumed missing. The envelope's presence suggested that the person who stole the car might also be the killer. It was as if the killer was taunting the police or trying to send a message. Carrie Cathcart, one of the lead investigators, opened the envelope, revealing yet another twist in this chilling case. Was the killer playing games, or was there a deeper message behind the envelope? The missing pool pass added another layer of mystery, leaving investigators scratching their heads. The town of Nome, already on edge, now faced the unsettling possibility that the killer was not only someone they knew, but might still be among them. The search for Sonia's murderer had become a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, with the police themselves under scrutiny. After patrol car 321 was stolen, investigators found a disturbing note inside. Scrawled with anger, the note read, "Pigs, I hate cops. I hate all of you," and further implied that Sonya Ivanoff was just an unlucky victim caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. The message seemed to taunt the police, hinting at an insider's knowledge of the department. Stealing a police car just to leave such a note seemed far-fetched, unless, of course, the killer was feeling the heat and trying to throw off the scent. The note, along with Sonia's pool pass, was sent to the lab for DNA and fingerprint analysis. But, like the crime scene itself, no new evidence emerged. Next, the FBI stepped in to provide insights. A criminal psychologist noted that the killer's personal reference to Sonia indicated a certain level of familiarity. The language used suggested a deliberate, cold-blooded intent to kill, with a menacing threat to anyone who might come too close. The chilling phrase, "I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone. Come close and I'll shoot you," highlighted the danger and fear that now gripped the police force and the community.
We needed to essentially start the investigation over. You leave me alone, and I will leave you alone. I will also shoot you in the head if you get close.
That's like something out of a movie.
It is.
It was one of those jaw-dropping moments.
The note, laced with the term "pigs," seemed designed to deflect suspicion, but instead pointed directly at someone within the police force. With Paul Souza's polygraph test clearing him of wrongdoing, attention turned squarely to his colleague, Matt Owens. Owens, who had been working tirelessly on the investigation, was now the center of the spotlight. He was scheduled for a polygraph test in Anchorage, but never showed up. Instead, Owens claimed he was still recovering from the earlier shooting incident. The focus was now entirely on Matt Owens. Investigator Burroughs recalled Owens's extensive involvement in the case. He had taken the initial missing person report, monitored the crime scene, and even found the stolen patrol car. The pieces began to fall into place. On October 21st, just 2.5 months after Sonia's disappearance, Matt Owens was arrested. The news spread through Nome like wildfire. The town was rocked by the revelation that a trusted police officer was the prime suspect in such a heinous crime. Sonia's mother was devastated, unable to fathom how someone who was supposed to protect could be the perpetrator of such evil. But the nightmare didn't end with Owens's arrest. The floodgates opened and the police department was deluged with calls from terrified local women. They came forward with chilling stories of Owens's misconduct. According to their accounts, Owens had offered them rides, only to coerce them into sexual acts in the patrol car. He would then taunt them, saying things like, "Go ahead, complain. No one will believe a drunk Native woman." What began as minor abuses escalated over time. Owens' behavior became increasingly violent and threatening. He used his weapon to intimidate and control, making it clear that his contempt for women and thirst for power through violence knew no bounds. 6 women stepped forward, accusing Owens of rape. Each story painted a grim picture of a man who had used his badge to inflict pain and fear. The horror unfolded over 2 years, with Owens escalating his threats and brutality. The pattern was clear. Each time he got away with it, his aggression intensified. Investigators, recognizing this dangerous trend, decided to dig into Owens' past to understand what drove him to such extremes. Matt Owens was born and raised in Florida, but his early years were marked by turbulence. After his parents divorced when he was about 6, he initially lived with his mother. However, due to ongoing family issues, his aunt and uncle took him in, leading him to Nome, Alaska. Matt thrived in this new environment, making friends and starting to build a life. But his stability was short-lived. His father demanded he return to Florida during his teenage years, only to show little interest in his life. Returning to Nome after high school, Owens worked various jobs before landing a position as a dispatcher at the Nome Police Department. Within a year, he was a full-time officer. Owens thrived on the control and admiration that came with his badge, and Burroughs suspected that this craving for control had morphed into something dangerously malignant. Despite the troubling patterns, there were gaps in the case against Owens. Witnesses claimed he used his police-issued Glock 45, but Sonia was killed with a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol. Moreover, Owens didn't own a blue truck, and none of the patrol cars matched the blue paint or tire tracks found at the crime scene. While Owens was a known rapist, there was no solid evidence linking him directly to Sonia's murder. The breakthrough came with the search for the elusive vehicle that had driven through the blood pool on the deserted road where Sonia's body was found. Investigators discovered that many vehicles in Nome had mismatched tires, complicating their search. A forensic analyst painstakingly examined tires across various parking lots in Nome. After sifting through countless vehicles, he found a blue truck with paint matching the sample from the crime scene branch and tire tracks. However, the truck belonged to a local scrap dealer named Benjamin Niles, not Matt Owens. Niles, adamant about his innocence, claimed he and his girlfriend had been out of town on August 12th for lunch. He provided a receipt from a restaurant and explained that they had pulled over on the deserted road where Sonia's body was found, so his girlfriend could use the restroom. This road was the same one where Sonia's body was discovered, and Niles had driven past the area twice, once going in and once coming back. But despite this seemingly impossible coincidence, Niles hadn't seen Sonia's body. The police were understandably skeptical. The blood traces on Niles's truck tires had long since washed away, making it impossible to definitively connect him to Sonia's murder. Investigators were stuck. They knew the exact time Sonia was killed, but couldn't prove that Niles was the killer, only that his truck was at the crime scene. Enter Bill G. Ford, a crime reconstruction specialist, who was brought in to review the case. Bill examined the crime scene photos and made a crucial observation. Sonia's body had been exposed to rain while lying there. This detail, while seemingly minor, could provide new insights into the timeline and movements of the suspect. As the case unraveled, it became clear that Matt Owens had orchestrated a web of deception and manipulation. His actions left a trail of fear and confusion, and despite the evidence pointing towards Niles, the true nature of Owens's guilt was becoming increasingly apparent. Owens had a .22 caliber pistol ready in his car that night. He knew exactly what he was doing. Being an expert in firearms, he had the skill set to carry out his plan with cold precision. The police were certain. If Owens had been allowed to go free, he'd be more dangerous than ever. He had mastered the art of disposing of evidence and was well versed in the brutal reality of covering his tracks. Sonia's murder wasn't just a random act of violence, it was the horrifying result of Owens's desire to see if he could evade capture. The fact that a young woman had to die for him to test his own limits is a grim reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. Fast forward to December 2005, and Matt Owens finally faced justice. After a harrowing trial, he was found guilty of Sonya Ivanoff's murder.
Evil comes in different forms. You always gotta watch out.
The sentence? A staggering 101 years in prison. It was a small comfort knowing that he would spend the rest of his life behind bars, paying for the horrifying crime he committed. But the story doesn't end there. In 2007, the state of Alaska took a significant step towards justice and reform by passing the Sonya Ivanoff bill. This law mandates the maximum sentence for any police officer convicted of murder while on duty. It was a legislative move designed to ensure that no other officer could misuse their power in such a grotesque manner. What do you think about this terrible and convoluted case? It's a stark reminder of how deep the darkness can go when trust is betrayed by those meant to uphold the law. Thanks for watching. Please like the video, press the subscribe button, and also drop your thoughts in the comment section.